Hi, I just have a couple of minutes. I wanted to just address one or two points that kind of came up in the past discussion that we were having. We were discussing the idea of how these concepts of Emunah, how the concept of free will, Bechira, and our ability to choose and cause and effect, how that interplays at the same time with Hashem knowing what's going to happen, and this idea that everything is for the best and whatever happened, happened for a reason. And we spoke about it specifically when it came to trying to understand some ideas having to do with parnasa, having to do with finances, how money moves around, both in terms of charity, giving tzedakah and helping people in that way, and also as far as making a parnasa, doing ishtadlus is concerned. So there was just one point that was really almost a side point that came up. But was asked about it. So I just really wanted to address this because it really happens to be a very central point to the philosophy and Torah thought. I just really wanted to make this point, and that is the following. If you recall, I'll put it into this context. We saw last time. I read for you the Moshe David Valley in his Parish on Tehillim, on the parak of Tehillim of Ashrei. So he says over there this idea that Pesach Hasidecha Masbil Chol Chayratzon, that Hashem distributes the money and He gives out the money to everybody, but it's an unfair distribution, right? It's an unfair distribution. It seems to be unfair. Some people get more and some people get less because Hashem made this world to be a makom of avoda. He made this world to be a place where, again, the wealthy people have to do their avoda by giving to the poor, and the poor people have to do their avoda of accepting their situation and davening to Hashem and the avoda that they have to do. And lest the person say that it's unfair, that's what the next pasuk comes to tell us. Tzadik Hashem b'chol derachav v'chasid b'chol na'asav. No, that Hashem is just. He's tzedek and chesed. It's all just and it's all perfect, in Hashem's distribution. But I want to just address this idea that that the playing field it is not started equal. The Declaration of Independence. We take self-evident. All men are created equal. So in one respect it's true. As far as men treating other men are concerned, people treating people. Let's say, on one level, but certainly people's circumstances in life are not created equal. There are people who are born into, much easier lives and much more difficult lives and much more painful lives and much more lives of tzarot that they don't bring upon themselves and that they don't choose. You have this, it's not a level playing field when it starts. I just wanted to address this for a second because I think this is a very important philosophical point, and I think it's a point, that, I don't know, I'm reading a lot of different books, secular books, science books. I'm thinking specifically about people like Richard Dawkins and maybe some others, Daniel Dennett, perhaps. And they say things like this, and there's a famous philosophical question, very famous philosophical question, but I want to kind of show how, with a basic understanding of Torah theology, of a basic understanding of hashkafa, of concepts of Emunah, of what the world is for, how, we can answer, even the biggest philosophers' questions. And they always say the following thing. This is, the God problem, they call it. I don't even say those words. Lahavdil. They say like this, there's so much evil in the world, right? That's plain to see. Anybody who looks around, you see there's a lot of ra, there's a lot of evil in the world, right? So they say basically like this, if God is all good and God is all powerful, then how can evil exist, right? If evil exists, some random terrible evil act exists, so then either, by definition, right, this is what they say, either chas v'shalom, either God is not all powerful because look, something happened, or He's not all good, right? Because if He's all good and He's all powerful, so how could such a bad thing happen? So that's a basic question, which on its surface, it could be a lot of people are bothered by this, and it makes sense. And the question, in fact, of tzaddik v'ra'lo is really, the Ramchal writes, is the biggest question. It's the question that's led the most people to go off the derech, the most people to not believe in God, is the question of injustice in the world, the question of tzaddik v'ra'lo. It's a very, very serious question, but it's formulated in this way. If God is all good and God is all powerful, so how can evil exist? Right? It must mean that either He's not all good because He did something bad, or He's all good but He couldn't stop this bad from happening, so He's not all powerful. Okay, that's how the argument goes. I would like just to try to explain, and again, what I'm saying to you now is straight out of the Ramchal from the Sefer Das Tfunos. He explains these concepts, and to kind of explain the fallacy in that argument, and why it's a flawed argument, and why any basic understanding, any theology, any Torah hashkafa, any approach that we're going to have, is going to hopefully, to make this question really childish, and not the question of tzaddik v'ralo, but this related in this very rational way, a very childish question. The Ramchal says like this. Ramchal says like this. It's obvious that God did not create the world according to His specifications, according to His standards, right? It's obvious that God created the world for the standards of the nivraim, of the creations, and not His own standards. What does He mean by that? Well, God is infinite, right? So any creation that would, truly be a reflection of God would have to be infinite, right? By definition, if any aspect of the creation is finite, if any aspect of the creation, has limitations to it, right? If I pick up a pen has borders, it has limits. So by definition, this is an item that was not created to represent God in His fullness. It was not created to represent a full picture of God, right? Because God is Himself infinite, right? So this pen was created on a scale that I can appreciate it. It's here for on my measurement, based on my standard, my relative size scale, not God's, right? We're talking now just in terms of finite versus infinite, right? So Ramchal says, it's obvious that the world was not created to reflect Hashem's perfection. That wasn't the point, right? Because if that was the point, the world would be an infinitely perfect place, infinite and perfect in every which way, right? But that's not what it is. So then, obviously, this is what he writes. So God's, intent in creating the world, and the measurements used in creating the world, and the standards used in creating the world were not His standards and measurements, but ours, right? It was meant for us. And if it's meant for us, and our purpose here is to work and to fix, so then by definition, the world is going to be an imperfect place. By definition, the world is not going to reflect God's all good and all powerfulness. It won't, because it was not built to reflect that. It was built to work for us, for what we need to be here to do. And in order for that to be the case, it needed to be inherently lacking. Now, how much lack does there need to be? Does there need to be so much lack that children suffer, and so much lack? That's already a completely different question, and I want you to appreciate that. That's a completely different question than saying, if God is all good and God is all powerful, how does bad exist? I want you to appreciate that. The one is a philosophical question of how can it be that evil in the world can exist from an all good, all powerful God, right? And the answer to that, I'm telling you, is a very simple, straight answer, is that the world was never intended, it was never meant to be a reflection of God's goodness. That was never the intention of the creation of the world. The world was created to be a place of avoda. The world was created to be a place for us to be able to work and to fill in the lacks that are here. It was never intended to be a place that would be reflected of God's perfection and infiniteness, yeah? And therefore it's created in a place of lack. Now again, how much lack there is, and why does that require that, to this extent that things have to be bad and difficult, etc. That's a whole different question, and then again, that's what the whole Sefer Das Tfunos is dedicated to, and what we're hopefully going to be working through when it comes to these shiurim. But I just want to make this fundamental point, a very fundamental philosophical idea that I hope you're catching. This idea that the world world was never meant to be. At this stage, ultimately it will. That's what Hanahdas Yisbud is. And then we'll see even at this stage that it really was a reflection of God's perfection. Yeah, we will see that. But right now, that's not what we're supposed to be seeing. Right now, we're supposed to see a world that is built for us. And for us means that there has to be something for us to do. And if there's going to be something for us to do, by definition, that it can't be perfect, there has to be lack. And that lack manifests itself as Ra, as evil, as it shows up in this world. Okay, I have to cut this short. Maybe I'll address other, thoughts about this either later or another time, but I'll upload this and then we'll continue.